Welcome to the American Heart Association's Bloodborne Pathogens course. This course teaches employees how to reduce the chance of exposure to bloodborne pathogens in the workplace and what to do if you are exposed to blood or blood-containing materials. This course is available both as a classroom-based course and as an online course. This training course has two parts. The first, or general part of your training, consists of the material presented in the student workbook. The second part is training you must receive on your employer's site-specific exposure control plan. The exposure control plan is a set of rules and procedures specific to your workplace. The plan is designed to protect you and your coworkers from being exposed to bloodborne pathogens and to care for workers who have been exposed to bloodborne pathogens. Your employer or instructor will provide this additional training. This course is designed to meet Occupational Safety and Health Administration (OSHA) requirements when used with site-specific training. This section is an introduction to the course. In your job, you may come across blood or blood-containing materials. Another person's blood may be visible in saliva, vomit, or sneeze droplets. Blood may also be found on non-living objects. This usually happens when blood from a person comes into contact with the object, but the object was not thoroughly cleaned afterward. The HeartSaver Bloodborne Pathogens course will teach you how to reduce the chance of exposure to bloodborne pathogens in the workplace, and how to stay safe when you do come in contact with another person's blood or blood-containing materials. Your workplace has an exposure control plan with more information on site-specific requirements. Ask your employer where you can find the exposure control plan for your workplace. When you see the exposure control plan symbol, know that you can find more information in your company's exposure control plan. An exposure control plan should include the following: a list of all job classifications that have a reasonable chance for exposure to blood, a list of all tasks and procedures in which occupational exposure may occur and that are performed by employees in specific job classifications, methods of compliance, which are rules to protect employees, and rules for human immunodeficiency virus, or HIV, and hepatitis B research laboratories and production facilities. An exposure control plan also includes hepatitis B vaccination and post-exposure evaluation and follow-up, communication of hazards to employees, record-keeping, and a procedure for reviewing what happened during exposure incidents. Bloodborne pathogens are germs in the blood that can make people sick. Examples of bloodborne pathogens are hepatitis B virus, hepatitis C virus, and human immunodeficiency virus. The hepatitis B virus, hepatitis C virus, and HIV virus are examples of bloodborne pathogens. These viruses can cause sickness. They often cause no short-term symptoms, can be passed on to others, and can lead to death. Symptoms and long-term effects of the hepatitis B virus and hepatitis C virus include yellowing of the skin or whites of the eyes, feeling tired, pain in the abdomen, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, loss of appetite, and damage to the liver. Symptoms and long-term effects of HIV include extreme unexplained tiredness, poor appetite with rapid weight loss, unexplained fever, swollen glands, increased chance of other illnesses, and can cause acquired immune deficiency syndrome, AIDS. At work, the main ways that bloodborne pathogens can enter your body and make you sick include a stick with a needle or other sharp item that has infected blood on it, or infected blood or blood-containing materials entering the eye, nose, mouth, or an opening in the skin. Even if you are exposed to a bloodborne pathogen, you may not become sick. Your risk of becoming sick is based on the amount of pathogen in the blood that entered your body and your body's ability to fight the pathogen. There are treatments that can decrease your risk of sickness even after exposure. The best way to keep from becoming sick after exposure to bloodborne pathogens is to protect yourself from blood or blood-containing materials. If you do come in contact with blood, there are certain actions you must take to try to stay safe. To protect yourself from bloodborne pathogens, you must do the following: protect yourself from blood or blood-containing materials, act quickly and safely, clean the area that has blood or blood-containing materials, and tell your supervisor about the incident. We are at the end of the introduction lesson. It is time to review your knowledge. Answer each of these questions on the Review Questions page at the end of the Introduction section of your student workbook. Bloodborne Pathogens training teaches: A. How to act if an exposure to a bloodborne pathogen occurs. B. Safe handling of blood without wearing gloves. C. The employee to quickly leave the scene of a blood spill. Or D. How to clean up a blood spill without personal protective equipment. The correct answer is A. Bloodborne pathogens training teaches us how to act if an exposure to a bloodborne pathogen occurs. Here is the next review question. Mark your answer on the review questions page at the end of the introduction section of your student workbook. Choose all of the statements below that are true about bloodborne pathogens. A. You will become sick only if enough of the pathogen enters your body. B. You will become sick only if there is a large amount of blood. Or C. You will become sick if your body is at risk for getting the illness. The correct answers are A and C. Here is the next review question. Mark your answer on the review questions page at the end of the introduction section of your student workbook. The main ways bloodborne pathogens can enter the body and make you sick include A. Picking up a towel with a small drop of blood while wearing gloves. B. Wearing gloves and picking up a container that has blood inside it. C. Wearing gloves with blood on them. Or D. Getting stuck with a sharp object that has blood on it. The correct answer is D. This is one of the main ways bloodborne pathogens enter the body. This section describes how to protect yourself from bloodborne pathogens. If you come in contact with blood or blood-containing materials from a person infected with a bloodborne pathogen, there is a chance you may become sick. Because you cannot tell whether blood contains bloodborne pathogens, it is best to treat all blood and blood-containing materials as if they contain bloodborne pathogens. This is called taking universal precautions. Universal because you should treat all blood and blood-containing materials as if they contain bloodborne pathogens, and precautions because these safety measures are intended to protect you and your coworkers. If you must help someone who is bleeding or be around blood or blood-containing materials, there are things you should wear to protect yourself. This personal protective equipment may include goggles, face shield, gloves, gown, apron, or lab coat, foot booties or shoe covers, and a cap or hood. Some protective gloves contain latex, and some people are allergic to latex. Whenever possible, use protective gloves that don't contain latex, such as vinyl gloves. If you or the injured person has a latex allergy, do not use gloves that contain latex. Which of the following are not personal protective equipment? The items that are not personal protective equipment are the sunglasses, work gloves, and kitchen apron. We use our hands to do many things, so they're the most likely areas to be exposed to blood or blood-containing materials. This makes washing your hands with soap and large amounts of water the single most effective form of protection for you and others during a potential bloodborne pathogen exposure. If you wash your hands correctly after contact with blood or blood-containing materials, you greatly reduce your chance of becoming sick or spreading germs to others. Follow these steps to wash your hands. 1. Turn on the faucet with a paper towel if possible, and dispose of the paper towel properly. 2. Wet your hands and apply soap. 3. Work up a soap lather for at least 20 seconds and rinse your hands very well. 4. Dry your hands with a paper towel and use that paper towel to turn the faucet off. Finally, dispose of the paper towel properly. Note that you can use waterless hand sanitizers if you do not have immediate access to soap and water. Wash your hands with soap and large amounts of water as soon as you can. If you have a reasonable chance of coming into contact with blood or blood-containing materials on your job, your employer should make a hepatitis B vaccine available to you free of charge. Your employer's exposure control plan will identify who is at risk. You will learn more about this in the site-specific bloodborne pathogens training. Ask your employer for more details. Because bloodborne pathogens can enter your body through your mouth, you need to be careful where you eat, drink, or smoke. Do not eat, drink, or smoke in any area where you might come in contact with blood or blood-containing materials. Also, it is very important that you wash your hands thoroughly and properly after handling blood or blood-containing materials and before eating, drinking, or smoking. This will reduce the chance of bloodborne pathogens entering your body through your mouth and making you sick. It also reduces the chance of spreading these germs to other places and other people. Warning labels, called biohazard symbols, must be placed on containers that hold or carry blood or blood-containing materials. Biohazard symbols have a bright orange or orange-red background with lettering and symbols in a different color. Your workplace has special areas and rules for disposing of blood-contaminated items. These disposal areas must be marked with a biohazard symbol and may include sharps disposal containers and red plastic bags. Handle biohazard waste containers with special care to avoid exposing others to blood-contaminated items. These containers do not go into an ordinary trash can. Your employer will provide specific instructions about which items should go in the biohazard waste containers and which items can be disposed of in ordinary trash. You must be able to recognize the correct symbols. Circle the biohazard symbol in your workbook. Biohazard labels have a bright orange or orange-red background with lettering and symbols in a different color. We are at the end of the Make a Pact, Protect lesson. Answer each of these questions on the Review Questions page at the end of the Make a Pact, Protect section of your student workbook. How should you best protect yourself from illness caused by bloodborne pathogens? Choose all of the statements below that are correct. A. Use cloth gloves to protect your hands. B. Hand washing. C. Hepatitis B vaccination. Or D. Use personal protective equipment. The correct answers are B, C, and D. Here is the next review question. Mark your answer on the Review Questions page at the end of the Make a Pact, Protect section of your student workbook. Washing hands and skin after exposure, A, is not always necessary. B, is not necessary if gloves are worn. C, is not necessary if waterless hand sanitizers are available and used. Or D, is done with soap and large amounts of water. The correct answer is D. Soap and water is the best protection against illness from bloodborne pathogens. This section discusses how to act if you are exposed to bloodborne pathogens. If blood or blood-containing materials enter your eye, nose, or mouth, or an opening in your skin, you must act quickly to lessen the chance that you will become sick. The exposure control plan for your workplace should have site-specific steps to follow. Ask your employer for more information. Follow these steps if you are exposed to blood or blood-containing materials. If you are wearing gloves, take them off. Immediately wash your hands and any skin that came into contact with blood very well with soap and large amounts of water. If blood or blood-containing material has splashed in your eyes, nose, or the inside of your mouth, rinse these areas with lots of water. Tell your supervisor or other designated company representative what happened as soon as possible. Your employer may send you to a healthcare professional for evaluation after an exposure incident. If the outside of your gloves has touched blood or blood-containing materials, you must take off your gloves without touching the outside of the gloves with your bare hands. Follow these steps to take off your gloves. Grip one glove on the outside of the glove near the cuff and peel it down until it comes off inside out. Cup it with your gloved hand. Place 2 fingers of your bare hand inside the cuff of the glove that is still on your hand. Be careful not to touch any wet or contaminated area. Peel that glove off so that it comes off inside out with the first glove inside it. If blood or blood-containing material is on the gloves, dispose of the gloves properly. Put them in a biohazard waste bag if your employer requires you to do so. If you do not have a biohazard waste bag, put the gloves in a plastic bag that can be sealed before you dispose of it. Wash your hands following the steps you learned earlier so that you don't spread germs. Now that we have talked about the first 2 steps of PACT, let's see how well you understand PROTECT and ACT. You see a spill on a surface or object that may contain blood. Number each of the listed steps in the order you would follow for dealing with an incident where there is a risk of exposure to bloodborne pathogens. You can write your answers in your workbook. Putting on personal protective equipment is first. Cleaning the surface with approved surface cleaner is second. Disposing of things you use to clean is third. Washing hands and cleaning yourself is fourth. And filling out appropriate paperwork is the 5th step. Which of the following correctly describes why universal precautions are observed? Universal precautions are observed: A. To comply with local regulations. B. To prevent contact with possible bloodborne pathogens. C. Only for those that have an infectious disease. Or D. For employees that are not related to you. The correct answer is B. To prevent contact with possible bloodborne pathogens. Sharps are needles or other sharp items that may have come in contact with blood. Anyone can be stuck by one of these sharps, including cleaning staff and coworkers. It is best to dispose of sharps in a sharps disposal container. Do not try to recap an exposed needle that has come in contact with blood. Note that some needles or items with sharp points have special engineering controls to help protect you. For example, some intravenous needles have a special mechanism that automatically covers the needle after use. Check your company's exposure control plan for additional information about handling sharps with or without engineering controls. This picture shows a used needle that has come in contact with blood. Where should you dispose of it? Circle the correct container. The correct answer is the sharps disposal container with the biohazard symbol on it. We are at the end of the Make a Pact Act lesson. Answer each of these questions on the Review Questions page at the end of the Make a Pact Act section of your student workbook. You have cleaned up a blood spill and have removed your gloves. To protect yourself, you should also A. Use waterless hand sanitizer. B. Wash your hands immediately with soap and large amounts of water. C. Go to the break room for a glass of water. Or D. Put the gloves in the regular trash. The correct answer is B. Soap and water is the best protection against bloodborne pathogens. This section discusses how to quickly and completely clean yourself and the area after exposure to blood or blood-containing materials. As we have already mentioned, your workplace has a site-specific exposure control plan. Ask your employer where to find a copy of it. Be sure to follow the details in the exposure control plan when you clean up after an exposure. It is critical that you quickly and completely clean up any blood or blood-containing materials to limit the chance of your coworkers being exposed to bloodborne pathogens. Your employer's exposure control plan has specific details on how to clean up. Small spills can often be cleaned simply with a disinfectant cleaner and a cloth or other absorbent material. Larger spills will require you to first wipe up the liquid blood with a cloth or other absorbent material. Once the liquid blood is removed from the surface, a disinfectant cleaner can be used to clean the surface. If the surface is disposable, you may dispose of it rather than disinfect it. Follow your employer's exposure control plan. You must put on the appropriate personal protective equipment, use absorbent materials to wipe up large amounts of blood, use a surface disinfectant cleaner to clean any contaminated work surfaces, and dispose of any cleaning materials in the appropriate waste containers. Listen to this situation, then select the next step in the cleanup process. Tom cut his arm. You are responsible for cleaning up the blood left in the work area. After putting on appropriate personal protective equipment, what is your next step in the cleanup process? 1. Wipe any excess blood from equipment and floor, then clean contaminated surfaces with a disinfectant cleaner. 2. Wet the area with large quantities of a disinfectant cleaner, then use a mop to clean up the fluid. Or 3. Remove any equipment or carpet that was exposed to blood. The correct answer is 1. We are at the end of the Make a Pact Clean lesson. Answer this question on the Review Questions page at the end of the Make a Pact Clean section of your student workbook. Your coworker takes items soaked with blood to the regular trash. After you put on personal protective equipment, you should A. Place it in a biohazard bag or container that has been furnished by the employer and follow company policy. B. Double wrap in a biohazard bag or container that has been furnished by the employer and take the items home to be laundered. Or C. Take blood-soaked items to the front office. The correct answer is A. You should follow company policy for disposing of items soaked with blood. This section addresses reporting exposures to bloodborne pathogens. It is very important that you report any exposure to blood or blood-containing materials. These reports help you get treatment and help your employer identify and reduce causes of exposure. Your employer's exposure control plan lists the people at your workplace you must tell about an exposure. Ask your supervisor or company safety professional for more information. You should tell your supervisor what happened as soon as possible. Your employer may send you to a healthcare professional for evaluation after an exposure incident. Your employer may need to complete the Occupational Safety and Health Administration Form 300, which is the log of work-related injuries and illnesses for a serious work-related injury. To protect everyone's privacy, your employer must keep employee medical records or injuries confidential. You or your supervisor may need to complete another form. Check your employer's exposure control plan for details. The Occupational Exposure to Bloodborne Pathogens Standard is published by OSHA. This standard defines the rules employers must follow to protect employees whose jobs expose them to blood or blood-containing materials. Many of these rules are covered in this course. OSHA also requires that you take this course every year. For more information on the standard, visit the OSHA website. In this scenario, Barbara had a cut on her forearm. Blood was on the table, the floor, and Barbara herself. Would you know what to do? Put the following actions in the correct packed order by numbering the steps from 1 to 5. After an incident occurs, put on personal protective equipment and take universal precautions. Clean up the blood, remove gloves and dispose of them in the appropriate biohazard container. Wash your hands with soap and large amounts of water. Finally, tell your supervisor what happened. We are at the end of the Make a Pact Tell lesson. Answer this question on the Review Questions page at the end of the Make a Pact Tell section of your student workbook. What should an employee do after exposure to blood? Choose all the statements that are correct. A. Report the incident at the next staff meeting. B. Report the incident to the person designated by the company as soon as possible. C. Follow company exposure plans after the incident. Or D. Call OSHA and report the incident. The correct answers are B and C. OSHA requires your company to provide employee access for reporting the incident and to have exposure plans for the employee to follow. Congratulations! You have finished the general portion of the American Heart Association's Bloodborne Pathogens course. To meet OSHA regulations, you must also receive training in your employer's site-specific exposure control plan. Ask your employer for more information about this part of your training.